Hey guys, so it's been a while since I've done another cleaning tutorial, so I figured it was time to do a new one. This time we're doing the Sega Dreamcast, as you can see here. What we're going to do is just flip it over. There's going to be 4 screws, one in each corner. One here, there, and over here. And then the last one is hidden underneath the basically the internet connection right here. So in order to get to that, you just pinch down on this and just squeeze it out, and these can be a little tough sometimes. So you can see here, this is just a little unit, and some nice grime on that as well there. So we're going to put that on the side for now, and just take this apart. And I forgot to mention, but these are just standard Phillips screw heads, so they're easy enough to get out. Once you've gotten those 4 screws out, you can lift this whole thing up. Now it is best to do it as you're facing the unit, because the disk assembly, the disk reader and so on, is kind of held in place by the lid itself. So if you do it the other way around, then it's going to be a little tricky. So you just lift this up, and as you can see, you got the disk assembly right there and the lid right here. So let's put that on the side there, and these are basically the main components. So you got the internet connection, you've got the lid, and the main base. So we'll put the base on the side for now and concentrate on these 2 here. So I think we'll do the lid first. And as you can see here, you got the power indicator held together with 2 tiny Phillips screws. You've got the eject button on the left, power on the right here, and of course the lid mechanism itself. So we'll just start by taking these out, like so, and then that will just lift straight up. And we'll throw that in soapy water. And you've got this right here, and you can see that there's a little spring right here with a little hook that goes through this piece here. So we'll just take a tweezer and just take that off like so. And then we can take out these 2 little screws here. I think this might be a little... Nope. A screwdriver will work on that as well. If not, you might need to use a smaller screwdriver. So we'll take those 2 screws out. There we are. And I find it best to just keep the washer on, makes it a little easier to identify those 2 screws. So there we go. And now this just lifts straight up, and that's just grime and plastics. We'll throw that in some hot water. And then by now you should be familiar with how these button systems work. You just pinch in and push down. Like so. And then you can just push it through with the screwdriver. There we go. And then that is the eject button. And then the same for the power over here. So just squeeze down and push out. And that leaves us with the disk mechanism, or I mean the lid mechanism up here. And we'll take that apart as well. And I find it easier to start with this side, because that will still keep it in place, and this is where all the springs are. So taking those out first is easier. There we are. And as you can see, this kind of wants to move by itself, so just be very careful as you handle that. And Yeah. There we go. And then you have the spring here, which is causing the tension. And now this can just go in the water as well. And now we can do the final one over on this side here. And that will just lift out like that. And there you have it. So that's the lid taken apart. Throw that in the water. Now, this glue right here, oh, well, that glue has completely loosened, so we'll just take that off then. We can, oh, no, it's still stuck right there apparently. Okay. So we'll, normally this whole thing is glued in place, but in this case it's just a little dab of glue right there. So I'm not going to throw this in the water because I don't want that glue to come off. So we'll just keep that as it is, and I'll just wash these areas manually by hand. And you can see here how grime and dust has settled over the years in here. So put that on the side. And we can focus on the internet connection here. As you can see, there are two screws right next to the port. So we will take those out. There we go. And then that will lift up like this. And then just, it's like up and out. So just wiggle that. Come on. There we go. So you can see here how it's got 3 pegs and 3 corresponding holes, and then this internet port needs to go out there as well. So all of those things kind of have to align, which causes it to be a little bit of a problem to get it out. So we'll throw that in the water, and then you can see here they have the circuit board, and it's been sandwiched by this. So in order to get that out, we would have to just tweak these a little bit. There we go. So that is the bottom piece. And then you can just slowly take this out as well. And you can see this right here is what's causing it to snag. So just slowly does it. There we go. So that is the circuit board itself. So we're going to just air dry this with some compressed air and blow any dust out of there. And that's pretty much it for that. So we'll put that on the side and move on to the main body here. So you've got the controller set up here, you have the main power, and of course the disk assembly. So you can see here the disk assembly just lifts straight up. So if you were to try to open this from the bottom, upside down, this would just, fall straight out. That's why you would do it this way. So you can see here there's a ton of screws. There's going to be 4 screws right here for the controllers. There's 2 here for the power. There's also 2 here on the power board. And there's a ton of screws all over the place here. So we'll just take it one step at a time. We'll start with the controllers. So we'll just do those 4 screws here. There we go. And then you can also see right here you've got the little power switch here. So we will just very gently take that out. Oh, let's just leave that one in then. Sometimes these things are a little tricky and you don't want to fight them too much. The power ribbon, however, we can just take out, so, and then we can wiggle this up and out. There we go. So we'll just, oh, that's right. Since I didn't take the fan power out, let's do the fan also. Just get that out. So we'll just do these 2 screws on the side here. There we go. Now that will just lift out. And one of the screws went ping. There we go. There we go. And then, I don't know if you can see, but this front lid here is actually sandwiched underneath here, which is why that doesn't move. So we will continue on. And we'll do the power switch and power board next. There's 2 screws for the switch. There we are. Now that's loose. Then we'll do the board. Again, just 2 screws here. And then as for the board itself, it's held in place by this little tap here. So you would pinch that out. So, and then this will just take that off. There we go. And you can see you got a little protective film right here, so we'll just put that over it like that. And then this power will just slide out as well. And now we're basically left with the disc reader itself. So we will take that out. It's got 3 screws. So one over here. There we go. And there we go. So that is the disc reader assembly. You know, we can lift this up here and do some more work. Oh, nice. I have no clue what that is. Wow, that's a first. I don't know if you can even see that. There you go. Wow, I have no clue what that is. So let's get that out. Well, I'm glad I lifted that up. Normally I don't do that. But yeah, as you can see here, we can get some air into here and just clean that out. But wow, that is... I didn't even... Well, that's not supposed to be in the disc reader. Wow. That's a first for me. It's like a hairball embryo. Anyways, you can see we're starting to get to the main board underneath all of this. So we will continue going down here. We'll take this off here. So basically now we're removing the heatsink. And the heatsink is held in place with a lot of these black screws here. So we'll put those out. And I said it before, but it's really good to have tweezers at hand when you're doing these things. And then it's got 2 golden screws on the left hand side there. There we go. And now that will just lift up. There we go. Yeah, that's really nice. We'll clean that up as well. And then that is the main circuit board or motherboard, as you can see here. So we can lift that up as well. Here we are. And we're going to clean that with some more compressed air. And then you have the bottom heatsink. So we'll throw that in the water. And then you have the bottom tray here, and now you can lift this thing up. So as you can see, this is, held in, well, you couldn't see there. There we go. So the controller port is actually the very first thing that you would put in here, and that's held in place right there. So, to get the controllers out, it is a little bit of a wiggly work, but there we go. So we'll throw all of that in the water and let it soak for a while, and we'll wash that up off camera, and I will come back when everything is clean. And we're back again. As you can see, everything has been drying overnight, and they're all completely dry, so we can start the reassembling process. So let's just start with the main body. We'll take this out of the way and just make some room here. So we'll start with the bottom piece here, the housing. And the first thing that we have to attach is the controller port, and that will just slide on top of this little rail here. It's going to be 2 holders on the side, and then of course the center 2 divots right there. That's going to keep that in place. Next thing we're going to do is put the bottom heatsink in, which is this piece right here, and that goes in like so. You can also see the 4 divot points here, which will correspond to these little slots here, and then of course you have the 4 screws on the top, which goes for these 4 screws right there. So that's easy enough to align. And we'll just pop that in like so. Now, one crucial thing here is these 2 raised areas. They're going to be touching the motherboard here. So they're going to actually be touching this little resistor here and this one right here. And for that reason, they do come with these little rubber pads, and they're typically just not glued down or anything. They're just sitting on top of these. So you want to make sure that we put those on first, and then we'll just let's see here, we'll kind of eyeball that. So that goes there on top of that. And then this goes here. Just kind of pat it down so it sort of sticks. And then we'll put the motherboard on top of that. And just kind of make sure that we don't, move those out of their alignments. So like so. There we go. And that is now being supported, and the metal is not grinding against the motherboard. That's the whole purpose of those. So then we'll take the next heatsink here, and that's going to go this way. So you'll have the screw points on the top, and you'll see here where the disc reader is going to connect, and that needs the hole right here to go through. And then of course the ribbon is going to go through this, and for the power, to go through that hole right there. So we'll loop this through here, and then just gently put this on top of the motherboard here, like so. And then that's going to be screwed in place, and If you remember, there are two golden or like brass screws over here, and everyone else around the perimeter are going to be black screws. So we will put these in like so. Now you'll notice that these 4 screw points at the top, I've left those empty, and that is because those are for the controller port. It's going to sit here, and then there's going to be a golden screw that goes through all of these 4. So at this point you're just screwing down all the other screws around the perimeter, and you'll come back to those 4. So now that that is done, we'll take the disc assembly, which is this bad boy right here. We're going to attach that, and as I said, this is the reader for the, or not the reader, but the connector for the disc assembly. And as you can see here, this is where it slots in. So you'll gently put that on top here, and just make sure that you're lining it all up. And push down ever so gently so that that connects. And you can also see right here that there is a pin spacer right there that's kind of helping you to align everything. So with that in place, we're going to take 3 golden screws, and we're going to put 1 in each corner here, and then 1 at the top right there. There's not a screw on the top right corner. So it's just 3 golden screws on this one. There we go. And next we're going to focus on the power over here. So the first thing that we want to do is get the power cord itself, or you know, the switch cord, and we will place that in here so that that is going to go underneath the board itself. So we'll just align this so it doesn't go through any of these little screw holes. Then we'll take the little plastic divider here and align it so that this hole goes over that pen, and this little cutout goes for this holder right here. So we'll slide that in like that, and you can also see here that the cord is now hidden underneath this plastic divider, causing, well, making sure that it doesn't cause any well, disruption or feedback or any kind of problems with the motherboard itself. I mean power board, not motherboard. So we will slide this on top and just align that. And you can see here it's got 2 cutout grooves, which are going to perfectly go into this groove in the back here, so you use that for an alignment. And then you just push this down, and of course these pins are going to connect here, so you need a little bit of force to, you know, connect those like so. And then you'll also see on the side here that little holder, which is going to snap over the board and holding the whole thing in place. Once that you've done that, you can attach the 2 screws right here, and those are also 2 golden screws. So we'll find those. Now that that is in place, we can connect the 2 just like that, and then screw that in place as well. And that is also using 2 golden screws. Next is going to be the controller port and the fan assembly. So, and as you saw, I didn't take these apart because sometimes this little connector here is a little tough, and you don't want to, you know, ruin anything by tearing this off. So, you know, you can easily clean this by itself. So we will take those and just align those over here So the fan is going to go like that, and then this is going to slide in with the controllers first. Just gotta get it under the ribbon, and then you just align those controller ports with the holes. There you go, and then that is in place right there. Yep. And then up till this point we've used the same type of screws. It's been the same diameter black screws, the same diameter golden screws all the way up till this point. This is where we'll get the larger golden screws, and these 4 here is the ones that are connecting these 4 screw points for the controllers. And they can be a little tough to get down into their spots, so I do prefer to line them up with a set of tweezers just to make sure that I don't drop a screw at this point, because I'll basically have to disassemble the whole thing to get those screws out if I drop them. The middle ones aren't as difficult to get into place, and they're not going to fall into any cracks if I miss, so I can do those by hand. Like so. And then a last screw over here, and again I'll just use tweezers so it doesn't get all the way down into the machine if I drop it. There we are. So those are the 4 longer golden screws, and they go right there. Then this little fan assembly here are using 2 small screws. So it's going to use these ones right here, which are, you know, very small, as you can see. And those 2 will go on the feet right here. So you can see one there and one over there. And these are, yeah, I think I'll do tweezers here. And I'll just slide that in here. There we go. And then another tiny one over on the other side here. There we go. And that is that held in place. Let me just take the ribbon and make sure that that gets connected here, and try to push down, straight down as much as possible, and just make sure that you get a good connection here, like so. So that is that, and that is pretty much it for the inside here. So we will put that aside for now, and we will focus on the lid itself. So first thing that we do is just align this and put the lid in its place. Flip it over, and when I was disassembling this, I was kind of taking it in a stupid order, so let's do a better job this time around. So that being said, let's flip it over again so we can push the buttons in. So the open button, that is going to go over here. And there is really only one way of putting these buttons in, so you know, don't overthink it. You should be able to read the button, power's on the left, open on the right, but even if you try to switch it over, let's say you wanted to put that over there, it's not going to go in. So there's really only one way. So we will do that, and then we will secure the lid first before we start doing this crap over here. So in order to do that, we would take this little divider here with the hook, which then hooks onto the lid, holding that in place. And we will screw that in with the two golden screws that have the spacers on them. And that is so that this little track can slide up and down, but not come out. And that's what the spacers are doing. So we will screw one of them right here. And the other spacer will go on the other side over here. And then we will take the spring that's holding everything together, and you can see it has a hook here and a little round connector right there. And of course the loop is going to go here, and then the hook, just take a tweezer and drag that over this pin right there, and that is going to hold the lid in place on that end. So with that being done, we will now screw in this little divider over here, which is this one. So you can see it has a little peg here which will slide into the lid, like so. And then we will screw that in place with the golden screw. And these screws are again going to be the same one that was holding the fan, so they're smaller. So you can see that once you've put basically the insides of the hardware in place, you'll use the bigger screws for the base, and then as you get to the top you'll change for the smaller golden screws. So the fan assembly is kind of directing you. From the fan and onwards it's going to be small screws. So that now that that is in place, you can see that the lid is now secured, which makes this a whole lot easier putting in. So we'll take this little unit, we will take the spring right here, and you can see here it's got the peg that goes into the lid. So we're going to slide this over that, and then you can see here that it's got a little divider which the spring will kind of hook into, and then we'll force that spring back, and that is going to go into this little, let's see, divot point right there. So that takes a little bit of manhandling, but it's not too bad. So we'll aim that first so that that goes into that groove, and then we will push this in like so, and as you can see the wheels are now connected. We'll just put that down, put some pressure on it, and then take two more of the small golden screws and just slide that and screw it into place. So one there and one over here. There we go. And now we can test that, and as you can see, that is now working perfectly. Last thing here is going to be the indicator. So that is going to slide right down here, and then we're going to use two more of the, or actually the two last of the small golden screws to hold that in place. So one on either side. like so. Now we can merge those two together. So you always want to put everything together this way and then flip it over so that the disc reader doesn't jump out of place. And now we're left with 5 screws here, and or sorry, 6 screws. And what you'll see is that there are 2 screws that are a little bit longer than the other 4. So just to show you here, there we go. So as you can see, there's one that's a little longer than the other, and there are only 2 screws that are long like that. All the other black screws for the entire console is the same length, and those are the ones we've been using so far. These 2 longer ones, that is for the network. So any kind of black screw in the console itself is going to be the shorter of the 2. So it's really simple. So we will move this out of the way here and screw 4 screws into each, well, 1 screw into each 4 corner. And that would leave us with the 2 longer screws for the network adapter. And then that is all good, so we can put that on the side and direct our attention to the network adapter here. Now it has to be said, this is kind of a pain in the ass to get the pieces to fit, but basically there's only 3 pieces, and then of course the network circuit board itself. But you'll be amazed how much trouble this actually is. So the first thing that we're going to do is take this little sleeve with the cutout and put that through there. And then you can see here it's got a little top lip which is holding this in place, and that's what's causing this to be a problem putting back together. Actually, that went surprisingly well for once. But you'd want this to be out and then this to be sandwiched in between. Now, just to show you here, this would then be sandwiched in here, just like that. And then this whole thing, you can see here it's got the 3 holes which correspond to this, and then of course the network goes out there. But if you try to just kind of work this in, it's never going to fit at all. You'll just be stuck there forever. So what I find works the best is, for some reason when you take it apart, you can easily, well, I say easily, but with a little bit of wiggling you can get this whole unit out. But when you're putting it back together again, you just never get this in right. So instead we're going to take this piece off, because that's the one that seems to be giving me the most problems, and then we're going to put this piece in first, because that's the one that's kind of connecting to these 3. Now that that is in place, we will maneuver this as best as we can, and then just pray to the console gods that we will actually get this in. And again, just wiggle and crap and everything. And of course you don't want to destroy the console. There we go, yay, finally. And then you can see here you have 3 little pegs which are going to go into these 3 holes right there. So once you have that, you're good. And then you can take the 2 screws, which are the longest black screws, and they serve this purpose and this purpose only. So if you want to be 100% sure that all the screws that you're putting in the console are the correct ones, then I would just suggest that you start with the serial adapter here, put the 2 longest screws in there, and you're set. Every other black screw is going to go in the main console itself. So that being done, we can now plug this in here. And there you have it. So we will just go over this, just wipe it down a little bit and make it look pretty, and we are good to go. And there you have it. So pretty much good as new, and that's all there is to cleaning out your Dreamcast. So thank you so much for watching, and hope you enjoyed.